when you're going up against like a system that is very powerful, and California is a very powerful state, you know, it's a lot. Mm-hmm.
You know, and so where are, in terms of people who have actually gotten all the way through the process and gotten some of the reparations or some of the medical records, their access to their own medical record, where is that at right now in terms of how many people have been received, how many have been identified, how many have actually been approved? Do you know how many have been denied?
So as you were watching the movie, watching the documentary, it stated, it was about 140 people that this happened. It was about 1,400 people that this happened, right? So right now, I think that between the legacy and the contemporary survivors, there may have been about 151 applications that were submitted, and only like 51 or 52 of them or something like that, between 51 and 53 of them have actually been approved. And so that means that the rest of them has been denied, and a lot of those people don't know why. Yeah. And
Okay.
and we only have another year for this program. So it's not like they will be continuously like looking for, no, it was we had a short window of time. We were only given 2 years for the program for them to identify, do the outreach, approve. And after 2023, in December 2023, then the program is over, because it was not put into like a law or anything else like that. It was actually written into the bill. It was written into the budget. So it was to cut. So it's basically the program is being funded through the governor's budget, the state budget.
I see. So then it's the budget, and there's this pool of money that is allocated for people who get it, and then at the end of the 2 years, the monies that were not released kind of go back into some sort of general fund.
No, I do want to make a correction, is that the way that he did it is that there's a portion that is allocated to the survivors that at the end, whoever is approved, then all of that will be dispersed. But then there, like you say, it's another portion that the state. Now it's funny that it's like we won 7.5 million, but like 2.5 million of that went back to the state.
Right off the top, just 2.5 going back
to, as they say,
administration costs.
Administration costs.
Well, they need, okay. I'm trying not to get simple, but it's very frustrating and challenging.
Yeah. That's what I said. It's been, like I said, it's been a lot of healing. It has been a lot of meditation. It's taken a lot to get here. But what is so much important for me right now is my peace, is my peace of mind, is my strength, the resiliency that I found in order to survive how I got there, to survive what happened to me while I was there, and then the fighting that I have been doing since I got home. You know what I'm saying? So it's been a long journey. And so right now, my peace is everything. It's everything to me.
Yeah, and so I want to ask you about your piece in a little bit, because that's the part that we all want to. I think we can all learn from. A lot of us have experienced traumatic experiences in our lives. We teach, we educate, we encourage people to take care of themselves. You've been through not just this, but just you have an entire life worth sharing before you even got incarcerated to begin with. So it has not just been a continuous struggle since 2002. It's been a continuous struggle since 19, and then I'll stop there, but you know where I'm getting at. So let me ask you, so because you mentioned the three parts. So there's the outreach, the financial compensation, and the memorial. So where are we at with the memorial? Like, is there
Yes.
is there something happening with that?
Yeah, so you know what, actually, I could share, matter of fact, we got some of the information just a couple of days ago, and so I could share it with your audience. You may be able to share it out with them. Is that because the fact that CDC took over the memorial process and really kind of like muted our voices and just more so in the respect for what we felt, as survivors, that we needed. We're having a convening. It's going to happen in Berkeley, in person, but I think that it is going to be also possible to see it virtually, to support the survivors on actually identifying other sources that would allow for a memorialization. You get what I'm saying? We're thinking that depending on either if we can rally around like CDC-R to, bring us into the process, but if that can't happen, then we're trying to see how, if we can identify other sources that will be willing to help raise either funds or to donate the space or materials that's needed in order to bring a final memorialization for the survivors.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the things that we see, like as we see these films and we think, well, we want to do something, like what can we do? Let's do so. And when I think of memorial, I mean, I think of statues, I think of parks, I think of streets being named. Yeah. I think of just mass movements, statewide campaigns, things that really memorialize what has happened to survivors of this.
Right. And here's the thing, $1 million actually went towards what this memorial was supposed to be. So for CDC-R to be able to, I don't know, it's a lot. But and that's what we were looking at, like, is it going to be an artistic statue? Is it going to be like a plaque? But I think the way they just want to just do like a basic plaque, like, yeah. And so it's like really, I want to cuss right now, but
you do what you want. You're not on the clock.
Like, it's really fucked up. It's really fucked up of still that there is still no compassion towards the situation. So, and in the end of, so it's just what it is. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, if you can send over that information to Megan and I, and then we can get that out, so we can also help spread the word. Thank you. I do want to take some audience questions, but before I do that, I told you I wanted to circle back and ask you about your piece. Your smile just lights up this computer screen. So how do you keep your peace?
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna point to three different things real quick. Number one, the people that you saw around me in the film has given me so much love and support, from even Erica, the director, Cynthia, Sean, my family, like, different people. That love and that support is everything. Sometimes we can concentrate so much on who is not loving us, and the people that, like, even family members that we want to love us back, or our partners is not loving us back. We can concentrate on that so much that we fail to really appreciate or even acknowledge and recognize the love that's being presented to us. You get what I'm saying? And so I had, in those moments, whether if it was behind the prison walls, when Cynthia came in, love was being presented to me at that time. And so I had to embrace it. So it's those moments of seeing and identifying love and who's bringing love that, number one, that helped me. Number two, what helped is the fact of spirituality, the higher power, the higher self, that helped for me to identify that peace. And then, third, I'm just gonna say it's chocolate chip cookies. Like, I'm telling you, you gotta just there has to be something. Like, some people may have, they might smoke weed, some people might eat gummies. I don't know what you do. But for me, it's chocolate chip cookies. Like, when I'm having a bad day, like I'll go out, like whether if I'm in LA or in a Bay, whatever, and I look for like people who specialize in like different types of cookies. And then I get the cookie and I eat a cookie. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't really have a bad day after a good chewy, gooey chocolate chip cookie. I'm just saying. So.
Oh my goodness, that's great. Thank you so much. So, I mean, you recognize love where it is and how love is being shown to you. And we know that people show love in different ways, right? Some people show love through service, some people show it through time, some people show it through touch. And I mean, there's different, and so recognizing love when it's being shown to you, I think that's really important, because sometimes we might focus, like you mentioned, we'll focus on things that aren't love. And then your connection with your spirituality, your higher power, which you probably don't do in isolation, but you're in a group of community with similar believers, and that also is really uplifting. Yeah. And then you eat that sugar, man, and then you eat those chocolate chip cookies. That's wonderful, and that sounds pretty balancing. We always tell people when we're trying to do like how to self-care, and self-care is not just about a work-life balance, but is balancing different aspects of our life, our social life, our emotional life, our spiritual life, and our work, and etc. And having that balance really does self-care. Well, thank you so much for sharing your secret. Any recommendations from shops in LA? We're not that far, and a couple of us actually even live in LA.
Yeah. So let me tell you, I don't know if have you been to Crumbles?
Some people are saying yeah over there.
Yeah, okay, Crumble. I'm telling you, because it got all of the little weird cookies. It has like the Rice Krispie treats on top of the cookie. Like, it's just Crumbles is really good. So I love Crumbles. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's my favorite. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. So now we're going to take a little bit of questions from the audience. So I believe we have Megan or Stephanie up in the front. I can't really see.
Yep, I have my microphone right now. Jocelyn's around though, but I do want to let everyone know the setup is Kelly actually can't hear us on this microphone, so I'm just going to translate to her. Okay. So just in case you guys have a long thing to say to Kelly, just letting you know that she has to translate it.
Yeah. Hold on one second, Megan. So Kelly, did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
No. Okay, great. Okay, yeah. All right. Yeah. So okay.
Question, just read.
Yeah. So I'll repeat the question to you, Kelly.
Okay.
It's a big theater. They're still walking.
Oh, it's okay. Or maybe they can line up in the walkway. I don't know.
Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, I can hear.
Okay.
My name is Veronica, and you can hear me.
Yeah, hi, Veronica.
Hi. I understand, and I appreciate the difficulties it is to go up against such a big system. But first of all, I want to thank you for your courage and your resilience, and for the work that you do. But I want to find out, has there any consequences been done to that position or any others?
I promise you, Veronica, that is always, for the last two, that has been the number one question that everybody says. And the answer is no. None of the physicians, none of the medical staff, the chief medical officer, even the controller. No one has received any type of consequences. I think what they usually do, as we know, is that they transfer them around from from facility to facilities. He was actually practicing in a different facility. I think it might have been a men's facility, but he still was at a different facility. There has been no charges, no criminal charges towards CDCR or anybody else. No. So the answer is no, Veronica. No.
Thank you, that's a shame. And has anybody, sorry, has anybody attempted to file like the medical malpractice lawsuit against him personally?
So it almost kind of like what happened to me, which is that you have to prove that you knew at a certain time, right? So here's the thing. This is why the fight was so long around like even the compensation part, is because upon the notification knowledge, then they have 2 years, which is the standard medical malpractice suit. They have 2 years to then file something against either CDCR or him, right? But you got to understand is that between him and the other doctor, which was the doctor that diagnosed me, those are just the doctors. You got to understand, there are surgeons that is not even named. These are just regular gynecologists that are perpetuating these harms while we're going to get pap smears and different things like that. Mind you, these 2 doctors refer to see the surgeon. So you have a whole nother system that's within the hospital that is also carrying out this agenda that wasn't even represented in the documentary.
Right. So then we could see like, well, so who's responsible? Like, is it the nurses? Is it the OBGYN? Is it the referring doctor? Is it the admitting doctor? Is it the surgeon? Is it the chief of the hospital where the surgeries happen? And and then so they end up not holding anybody accountable.
And so they end up or either to try to track down who's if you would either have to have a team of attorneys, or either you will have to have enough money for or either to find an attorney that is willing to take your case personally. So I don't know what's happening right now around the criminal, because it's all civil. You would think it should be criminal if we found out that it was an agenda and to this magnitude. But right now, I don't even think that there's anything that's criminally charged now. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, because that was the purpose of creating the law with Senator Hannah Beth Jackson, to then we can able to hold them accountable to something. It's so many layers. It's so many layers. But yes.
Well, I know a good lawyer. Her name is Cynthia. I think she really loves this kind of stuff.
Yes, Cynthia is awesome. And but Cynthia, so here's the thing, I'm just gonna tell you too, is that Cynthia actually got it's always hard for me to say Loyola Marymount. So she has some attorneys from there that is like some student attorneys that are working to actually help some of the women as they are being notified or even being denied, that is trying to help them. So we don't know, this is just started happening like within the last, because they just really started doing applications in the last couple months, even though it's been a year. So so that's what's happening around there. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for answering, Kelly, and thank you for your question, Veronica. We'll take another question.
Thanks,
I'll try and talk less. I really enjoy talking with you, and kind of got control of this thing. So, but Megan, we can. Is there another question?
What does it look like for women who are still incarcerated who should also be getting abortions? The state just cutting them a check too.
Did you get a chance to hear that?
No, that was muffled. I know you're inside the theater, but I need y'all to use your outside voices. I can't. You muted. You muted.
Oh yeah, I was getting mad at her for not being louder. I didn't want you to hear me. All right, go for it, Maricruz.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So my name is Maricruz, and I'm wondering what the preparation program looks like for women who are still incarcerated. Is the state cutting them a check just like if you're already released? What is that process like?
Wait, say that last part.
What is the process like for women who are still incarcerated? Are they going to be getting a check too, or what does that look like?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. Great question. So, there are, so part of our fight was to make sure that applications was accessible to those that were still incarcerated and may have gone through some of these surgeries. One of the fights in which we were fighting between victims compensation and CDCR is that that to make the information like through legal mail, which is like confidential, right? Because if you just do it as regular mail, sometimes, and if there's time limits involved, CDCR correctional officers sometimes don't, whatever's happening, they may not go through the mail in a timely manner. But not only that, they read through all the mail. And so we know that you got good cops and you got bad cops. And sometimes bad cops will then blast your information to other inmates. It happens all the time. Is what it is. And so they too don't have access to their medical records. They can only just submit to try to see if this maybe possibly had happened to them. And even after so one last thing is that part of the way an inmate has to go about gaining the medical records is they have to write an inmate request. And usually what happens is that in that inmate request, things are not normally always it's just because they make things difficult. It's not granted when it's supposed to. So then you have to write a formal complaint in order to get the medical records. But the catch to it is that if an inmate is indigent, or meaning that they don't have any money coming in or very little coming in, and the medical records they charge inmates for their medical records. So that means that they may not have the funding that's needed and necessary to even get the copies of their medical records.
How do they pay for it? Through the money that they get, that someone puts in their account?
Hopefully, if they have someone who is helping them to put or have money in their account, or that they have enough. So it's just, so let's just say that that I'm requesting these medical records, and then they tell us, well, the medical records, you have 200 copies of medical, 200 sheets. This is going to total $45. The inmate may have to have somebody give them the money from the outside to pay for the medical records, but you're going to have somebody send you at least $120 because they take a portion of that money as victim, like they take a percentage of the money. And so that's how it goes. And so like you just, it's like I say, it's these multiple layers where people like, well, can't you just ask for your records? Like you got to understand is that we don't have the same access or privileges that people that when you went to Kaiser or wherever you go, you know what I'm saying, that you will be able to go to. So it is a very hard process, but that is the reason why California Women's Prison, and back to the basis with Cynthia, that we are helping individuals as needed or as requested when they're bumping into these types of issues. Yeah, because Cynthia, I'm gonna go back a little bit, but Cynthia Chandler, she actually gave money, her own money. She gave me money in order to make sure that I got my records 20 something years ago. You know what I'm saying? So if it was for Cynthia she helped me out of her own pocket to get what was needed and necessary so I can give her the record so she can have a professional look at it. Mm-hmm.
You know, I have we'll move on to another question, so you can get the microphone ready. But
Okay.
Before that, have any medical staff come forward since the release of the film, or since this kind of became public, and kind of reached out to you or Cynthia or the organization and say, like, I'm just personally, like, I know there was one woman in the film or a couple, right? And they're like, well, but I think it should be, or whatever. But like coming forward and saying, oh my God, I'm really sorry I did that to you, or I was a part of this process. Like, has anyone held individually accountability for their role in it?
No, there has been no individual accountability. I was even hoping that maybe Mr. Newsom would have met with us, since this is a historical moment for California as well. We're the third state out of 50 to actually grant reparations for for this incident. While we're setting up the next question, I just want to kind of give a little history, is that the ability to sterilize was part of a federal agenda. It was the Buck versus Bell, but it was part of a federal agenda that allowed for sterilizations in 50 states. California just took it to a whole nother level. So California is, even though it was mandated, not mandated, it was put across the 50 states. California in itself sterilized over 32,000 individuals during this time, which combined multiple, like 20 other states combined. California went to work for, like that. So, for our, but I do also want to give another tidbit of information, because I feel like it's very needed and necessary to know, is that during the time, mind you, the sterilization program started in 1920. For those who know that UCLA founding year was 1919, and UCLA was the institution in which was used in order to help carry out some of the practices of eugenics, as well as the sterilization. It was a participant institution. It was a participating in like research, everything institution around this. Now UCLA, when we were fighting for the actual bill with Senator Jackson, UCLA came forward with their apology for having been a part of this historical egregious act, but thus far we have that on campus. We have, the women's the sociology department, the women's study department. So, they were in much support of it. So like we've had a few, and Planned Parenthood. So Planned Parenthood came forward with their apologies and saying that they wanted to start making things right as well. So we've had other institutions to come forward, but not the main one. So
Yeah, and you know, that's interesting because, and it's unfortunate too, but as you're talking about your like Planned Parenthood and UCLA, these other institutions, it reminds me that it's not just the prison system either. Like it goes, like the prison system itself is a beast, but it goes much beyond that. I mean, this
Yeah.
is and UCLA, now very prestigious, and built its built its research reputation on being able to do this state-of-the-art research
Yeah.
facility right
Yeah.
around the time when this was
Yeah.
happening.
This was happening. They were the institution that helped to carry it out. And so, like, when we talk about going up against one thing, like I say, like when you've been in this fight for 20 years and you start learning all the moving pieces, like when people talk about systemic this and systemic that, then this is really what that looks like. It's the education system, it's the medical system, it's the prison system, it's the political system. All of these people are, I mean, all of these institutions are willing participate. I mean, like they are in collaboration with a particular agenda. You get what I'm saying? And this agenda had the first agenda was the fact that they felt that people who had mental health issues or cognitive, mental, whatever it was that they had that they needed to be sterilized because they produce other feeble people. But then the second agenda was the fact that African American women or women that are in prison are also financially a burden to our government, and so they need to be sterilized as well. And so, like, and then you have people that agree, that make these decisions, and then you got people that carry it out. So
you know, I was watching this movie. My wife couldn't make it here today. She's taking care of her mom. But when we were watching the movie earlier this week, and they mentioned in the film about, you know, it's more cost effective. It's like she was about to throw stuff at the TV. Like she was like, what? Like it was just it, and the fact that was even used not just justifiably in conversation, but in writing, like that is the justification for it. It's
yeah.
Great. All right. We have that other question lined up.
Hi, Kelly. I live. I noticed at the end of the film, it said that they're still doing forced sterilization in prisons around the nation. Is there anything you guys are doing right now that is fighting against that? Like, what is the goal you're working towards?
Yeah. Okay. So, so in the so part of one of the I guess the functions of the documentary is to be used as a teaching tool, a learning tool, right? Of things to look for, how come, you know, just having to fight this reproductive justice movement, right? We in the last 3 years, we really been from from Washington, D.C. to Chicago, Miami. We've been everywhere, you know, working with different individuals and institutions, you know, Sister Song in Chicago, Miami U, with their gender justice and gender program there. We just been everywhere trying to work with individuals to talk about their strategies, how to organize, what to look for, refer, you know, to help these movements. Because you got to understand is that, like, this fight was a California fight, but in the midst of when we released the film, then the ICE detention centers and the sterilizations that were going on in the ICE detention centers in Georgia sprung up, right? So that was something that, so then we didn't have to work with the whistleblower, which was nurse, I believe her last name was Wooden, with Miss Wooden, who was also now the voice and the advocate for Georgia and the ICE detention centers there and some of the sterilizations and the things that was happening there, then we had to support her and push that movement. And then also just make the connection with reproductive justice organizations, just different types of organizations that will be able to support the movements that's within their state. You know what I'm saying? So that's where we're at.
I guess we're in California. You did the work for us here. So thank you. If we know people in like, what can we do? Like, we don't have access to legislators or senators from other states and so forth, right? And so we're here, but like, what can we do to help the movement on a national level? I mean, and I know, I mean, you don't have to know the answer. I'm just, I guess I'm asking all of us.
But what's happening right now is Buck versus Bell, like how Roe versus Wade, but it's Buck versus Bell. Right now, there is a national movement in order to actually to address Buck versus Bell, because it's never been dealt with. It's still an actual. So how can I say this? Is that the law, the federal law is in place, which still could possibly allow for the continuation of these types of sterilizations. So the national and the federal push is to now bring that up to the Supreme Court in order to get rid of Buck versus Bell, right? That is the next movement that nationally, together and collectively, we are trying to address. But it's like it's almost together with it's simultaneously an issue around reproductive justice. So we're dealing with abortions, and then we're dealing with sterilizations at the same time. And then I believe it was either North Carolina or South Carolina that we just recently discovered that they were actually the whatever medical institutions and hospitals back there was allowing for women to have pap smear procedures being done on them while they were under anesthesia for something else, without their knowledge, without their consent. So like you say, so now there's a whole nother lawsuit going on right now on the East Coast with that. It's so much that to have one conversation will always lead to another, but these are the things that are happening. And right now it's like, but this is what I gotta say, is that every time we begin to address one thing, it's somehow, like you say, it hides and then it goes into another institution, like some type of other, system in which it's perpetuated under a different title and in a different way. So we really just really what I believe is the next, what we have to pay attention to is our schools. Because when I'm working with some of the girls, especially young girls of color, they have a Planned Parenthood, or they have like a reproductive nurse or whatever it is they have that's in there, that's giving young girls 13, 14, 15 years old experimental or like you said, like that clinical trial type birth control pills. And they're giving them this, and the parents have no knowledge of it. Now, do we want young girls to be able to, be able to take care of their bodies, or either to have, you know, some access to this level of medical care, or if they may be having sex and their families don't know about it. Yeah, we do. But it's mostly in urban communities, low income communities and schools where these contraceptives and stuff like that. And then so some of the girls will come to me and say that they having issues like their periods, or these things are happening, or they're bleeding, stuff like that. And now they're scared to tell their family because they receive something without the mother or the father's knowledge. So this is it's like I said, it becomes complicated, but it's also a vulnerable place. It's I mean, not a vulnerable, it's like a great setup for another way of
Forced sterilization. I mean, it almost sounds like that, right? It's like, okay, it sounds like there's a research facility that's saying, I mean, in the film, they talked about, you know, sometimes they were using African American women just to practice hysterectomy. And so it's, I mean, yes, do we want access to reproductive autonomy? Absolutely. But does that include non-consensual clinical trials on experimental drugs? Where the consequence, and where then now they can't even share it because they were doing this. And so, that's.
And so that's why I said, so it's like when we say, what can we do? Like if maybe sometimes it's just about, you know, like looking into some things, you get what I'm saying? Or either just looking at or researching what organizations in your community, in your city or state, like what some of the things that interest you, what are these fights? And then just having a phone call. Hey, listen, I saw that you was working towards this. Like, what is your mission? What is the issue? Where is these things happening? How can we help? So sometimes it's just really on that community, local level, that support. And sometimes they say, well, I just need you to share the flyer or get the word out, or we're having a meeting, and just, you know, like that. So, yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly. We have time for one more question, so we're going to go ahead and get one more question out.
Okay.
Hi, Kelly. My name is Darcy. Wow, I'm honored to ask you. I wanted to start out by just expressing some gratitude. I wanted to thank you for your advocacy and for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you.
Especially while you're protecting, you know, your personal peace. I think that just really says a lot. Thank you. And my question is a little bit more personal in nature, so I hope that's okay. There was a point in the documentary where you were describing that at that point in time, you know, coming out of your carceral situation, you were feeling unwhole and unworthy. And like I said, I'm a legal advocate at Radiant Futures. And I think a lot of our survivors would really relate to that feeling. And I just wanted to know if you had any feedback or advice that you would give.
Yeah, thank you for that. You know, we already know that in society, a woman's worth, and that's even all around the world, right, is centered around her ability to be able to produce a child, right? We know, we watch so many different, like the Spanish princess and everything like that, where it was contingent on them producing a male child, whatever. So in the way I grew up and just in the society that I grew up in, is that, you know, that's a woman's worth. Now, although I'm grateful that I had children prior to that, right? But my circumstances were so like different with how I even went and incarcerated behind domestic violence, is that I didn't know my worth at the time, right? So many different messages from the judicial system to my family to incarcerated, the medical system had abused my body, mistreated me, mishandled me. And so when that is repeatedly happening, it's a cycle of it. you're going to feel that the message is, I don't matter. I'm not worthy. I'm unlovable. You know what I'm saying? And so it took a moment. So when I mean, when I went out, I wasn't whole because my heart was broken. My trust was broken. All these things would happen. And then on top of that, the ability to give life was taken from me. I was not whole. I was unhealed. I was brokenhearted, and I was not whole. And so, but now, right? It took a lot of work. I'm just saying, it took a lot of work to be able to look at the things that I was able to produce, right? Even though I might have been able to produce a child, but look all the other things that I was able to produce, creative wise, program wise, and then I had the ability to love so many children in the community, right? And so I just, so anyway, I'm just gonna say that, yeah, it's this, I'm just now, I promise you, just now in 2023, I walked into 2023 feeling like the best that I have ever felt in my whole entire life. It's like, remember I said, oh, this gotta be another happy ending. But I realized that the happy ending, I was waiting externally for a happy ending, but not understanding that what I was waiting for was what was inside of me, and the acceptance of me. You know what I'm saying? And what was inside of me. That's what I was waiting on. I was waiting on me. You know what I'm saying? I was waiting on me, you know. Everybody else had told me who I was, or tried to make me believe that who I wasn't. And so I was waiting on me, you know. So
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Kelli. Thank you, Darcy, for that question. Everyone, let's give Kelli another round of applause. And I do really think that is a great way to end it. I mean, you started with, it's my year, like I am in sabbatical almost. And then we went through your story and then kind of ended right back at that, because you're like, this is where I'm at. You can't take me away from this space. Your journey of healing, your journey of letting go, your journey of forgiving. And I think that is something that I think all of us can take with us, because if you can forgive, then it helps remind all of us in those moments that we may not be ready now, but it is possible. It is possible to heal and to continue to grow, and forgive. We put ourselves in the right state of mind. All right, Kelli, we won't take up any much more of your time. But
I do want to say one thing is that I know that you probably already shared it with your audience, but some of the survivors will be speaking out tomorrow virtually. And then, so I know I shared with the thing with you. So if you guys want to pop in, meet some of the other coalition members and survivors and the legacy survivors, or the families of the legacy survivors, then we'll be talking tomorrow.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so we had that up on our slides as we were starting with a QR code that leads to the registration page. So yeah, hope, and it's we saw it was UC Irvine, but it's a webinar. It's online. So we'll be looking forward to that as well. All right, Kelli, thank you very much. Have a great evening, and enjoy some cookies before you go to bed.
Oh man, I can't wait. Have a good day, guys. Peace and blessings.
Bye-bye.